In this lecture, we'll talk about Booleans. And Booleans can only have one of two values, true or false. Now there's a whole algebra called Boolean algebra built around this idea of Booleans. But from our perspective, within our coding, Booleans are particularly helpful to us as we need to make decisions in our code. And so we'll see how useful that is starting in the next lecture. You'll just have to believe me for now that this is really going to help us as we write our code. Before we continue discussing Booleans, you should go do an in-video quiz asking you about information that I haven't shared with you at all. Okay, the answer is George Boole, in case you were wondering. Within C# we get a data type to store values of only true or false, and that data type is called bool. And we've actually seen this when we did the lecture and we accessed the dec empty property. That property returned a bool to us, and decs can only be empty or not. So variables of the data type bool can only have values true or false. The other thing that we're really going to use a lot is Boolean expressions. So Boolean expressions can also only evaluate to true or false. Let's start by talking about the logical operators that we include in Boolean expressions. The first one we'll discuss is AND. So if we have two Boolean variables, A and B, and we evaluate A ampersand ampersand B, that will evaluate to true only if both A and B are true. If either A or B is false, or both of them is false, then the AND operation will evaluate to false. So AND means both of them are true. OR means that one or both of them is true. So the only way OR can evaluate to false is if both of them are false. And the final logical operator that we'll regularly use is something called NOT. And it's a unary operator, and so it only works on a particular Boolean variable. And it's a negation. So basically if A, let's say not A, if A is true, then not A is false, because not true is false. And similarly, if A is false, then not A is true. So that might seem like really confusing stuff. As we work our way through the course and later courses, we will develop Boolean expressions and it will become more natural to you to sort of think about the conditions you're trying to check and to formulate a Boolean expression to check them. Now, the other kind of operator that we regularly use in our Boolean expressions is called a relational operator. It's checking the relationship between two different values. So equal equal is checking for equality. If name equal Bob, for example, or if score equal 10 million. Not equal is obviously checking non-equality. And then of course we have less than or equal to, greater than, and greater than or equal to, which should seem natural to you. So before we go to the recap for this lecture, you should do an in-video quiz about Boolean expressions. To recap, today we learned that Booleans can only have a value of true or false, and we learned that we get both a data type, bool, in C# to store values of true or false. And we also learned that we have Boolean expressions that we can use to build more complicated expressions to evaluate particular conditions. And that's going to be really helpful to us when we start making decisions in our code.